Students, welcome to week 5. So in our second lecture, we're going to look at commonly confused and misused words. So notice how some words might sound the same or look the same. These words can include
So if you want to go with this, you can be more concrete by actually
there,
stating how, but was it
there,
write an explanation of how this
and
structure
there.
go a bit
If you say these quickly, they might sound the same, but each one of these actually means something different.
you get what I'm saying?
So, there means somewhere, like a location.
To align with this.
It's over there. There, it's a possessive pronoun. So, see if you can think of one. Something like their job is to, let's make it fun, eat. And they are, is the long form of the third one, there. So, you can write a sentence like this: they are eating. So as you can see, we have 3 words that sound the same, and to some might even look the same, but they can be confusing and you might misuse them. So sometimes you might see a sentence like, there is a bookstore. See, that's when you use the wrong word to say something else. It should be there is a bookstore,
They want to decrease the budget.
let's say in UBC, for example. Okay, so we're going to look at some common words that may be confused or misused. So we're going to look at these words, how they might be confusing, and how to fix them. Okay, let's take a look at the first one. This is very common. We have effect and affect. So I'll say the first one again, effect and affect. So you notice the spelling is different and the pronunciation is also a little different if you try saying them. So effect and then affect. Now there's also actually 2 meanings to this word each. So effect means result. Affect means an emotion. However, you may not see this one very common unless you're in psychology. Affect. Affect. That means to change. And then you can have the same word, effect, but it means to make a result. This is 3 and this is 4. So the most common words with effect is the noun, the result, and the verb to affect, to change. These other 2 you can see in a dictionary, the affect, which is a noun, an emotion, or to effect something, which is to make a result, to make something happen. But the more common ones are number 1, effect, and number 4, affect. They even sound the same, which makes it even more confusing. The only one that really sounds different is affect, which is the noun. But we're not even talking about this right now. Let's focus on the verb affect and the noun effect. Let's take a look at these sentences and you'll see what I mean. The results of the US election, so that's the results, greatly affected me or affected me. So there are two of these here. And the only change in these two sentences are the words effect and affect. So which one do we need? If we use the effect word, you notice it's a noun, so that's not going to work. We already have the subject, an adverb, and the noun here, the object. So we're looking for a verb, so this cannot work. Even if we use the second definition of effect, which is to make a result, that doesn't make sense either, because you already have the results of the US election and there's no result of you. So we have two definitions left. Affect, no, that's not going to work. It's a noun, so that's not going to work. That doesn't work here, that doesn't work here. So the only one left, the results of the US election greatly changed me, affected me, or changed me. So that's the first one. Again, the effect, you would most commonly see that as a noun, which means the result, the effect of something.
And you had lots of little grammar mistakes, so I'm sure.
An effect, the most common definition you see is some sort of change in a verb. So if you check the definitions of these words, use them in the sentence properly, you won't get these two confused. Okay, let's try the next one. Stable versus stabilized. So stable here is definitely an adjective. It means steady or firm. Something that is not moving. Still. Or stationary. And it describes an object actively. So for example, if you use this in a sentence, the chair is stable. That means the chair is not moving, or it won't move when you sit on it. Stabilized can be a verb or an adjective. But there's a difference here. This is an active voice, and this one is a passive voice. Something is stabilized. So for example, we use the same sentence again. The chair is stabilized. This means the chair was moving, but somebody or something made it stable, stopped it from moving. So here, with stable, it's active because we're talking about the chair. The chair itself is not moving. In stabilized, number 2, somebody else is making the chair not move. So we'll draw the action again. Somebody is stabilizing or holding the chair, held it. So, with that in mind, let's take a look at the sentences. By focusing topics other than the election, you will become more stable. Or, by focusing topics other than the election, you will become more stabilized. Since we are talking about the subject here, you, and it's about focus, it's probably somebody trying to write a paper. Stable is the one we're looking for. you will become more stable. Becoming is an active voice. Become stable. So that's the clue.
So I don't know if you want to reconsider the point you presented.
You hardly become stabilized. So if you watch English medical shows, if somebody is stabilized, this is a case common that you would use this. So somebody was dying or in a serious injury, and then they're no longer dying. Is okay. Like medically. In a hospital. Something like that. Okay, so remember, stable is in active voice, and it's an adjective. Stabilize is in a passive voice. That means somebody's holding the object or somebody has helped you. Okay, an easier one this time. We have fewer, less, and lesser. So, how are these words different? So the first thing is, if you check the dictionaries for these words, these are all adverbs, with the exception of this one. See an ER, so that's an adjective. So with fewer, this one is used for countable nouns. So things you can count. So people is something that you can count. Well, although with people, you count one person, two people, three people, and so on. Another word that you might get confused with is persons. When you use people, you usually write people to mean persons. However, you can also use persons, but in special cases, which I won't get into right now. Less is for uncountable, things you cannot count, but you usually measure or some sort of abstract idea. Like, for example, water is uncountable. So instead, here you can measure water, like 1 liter, 2 liters, 3 liters. You can count liters, but you're counting liters of water. So that means water itself you can't count. You measure it with something else. Lesser is like less, but you're comparing two things. Two nouns, to people, to objects, doesn't matter. So there's a greater, and then there's a lesser. So when you see only one object, or one noun, then you can't really use lesser at all. So if you look at the sentences now, people is countable, so we use fewer people vote every year. So for example, last year 100 people voted, this year less than 100 people voted. And here we use less than, but fewer when you just use fewer, less, or lesser. And here with the second sentence we have water. So because water is uncountable, we use less. There is less water in the tank than there was yesterday. So again, fewer is for fewer is for countable nouns. Less is for uncountable nouns, things you can't count. And lesser is for comparing two nouns. So things that are less, it can be less money, but you can have fewer dollars. You can count dollars, but you can't count money. You can have more or less money, more or fewer dollars. Okay, you can also have less, let's say, stress. Stress is something you feel, you could sort of measure it, but it's an abstract idea. So you use less. Fewer, let's say, memories. You can count memories, 1, 2, 3, 4, things you can remember. So, if you can count them, use fewer. If you can't count them, use less. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Here are some things that you can fix by checking the nouns before them. So, let's try reading the sentences first. Focusing less on the news and more on your homework will make you more concentrated. Now, interestingly, concentrated does mean focused, but it actually means more like gathered together. So let's say the example I can give you is, let's say you have orange juice. Now, you could have, let's say, half orange juice and half water. So it's not all orange juice, but you have some, but not all. But if you have more orange juice in there, let's say you have 90% orange juice, then this one is more concentrated. So this concentrated is not what you're looking for. So it's more gathered together. Instead, you probably want to just stick with the word focus. To fix on something. Fix or focus on something. Let's say this is your school. So using the right adjective and the active form of the adjective will fix this sentence when you try to say that you want to become more focused, and focusing on the right thing, which is homework, will help you do that. This one is a different concept. Media here is actually plural. Medium is the singular. One medium, and media is the plural. There are other words like this. So, for example, datum is singular, and data, if you have more than one datum, is also plural. So, media is plural. Therefore, we need to change that to have. Just a note though, there will be people that argue using media as like a category, like TV, internet, and so on. So if they use that argument, then they would be right. So the media in general is sort of one big uncountable noun, then yes, you can still use has. But if they mean different modes of media, like TV or internet or radio, they mean all these different things and not in general, then they need to use the plural form, which is to have. Let's try this one. The sentence reads, I can cook, but only if the recipe has fewer or less than 3 ingredients. So we check if we can count the ingredients, 1, 2, 3, so we need to use fewer. So it reads, I can cook, but only if the recipe has fewer than 3 ingredients. Okay, let's try the next one. We haven't seen this one yet, but we have the words use and used. So it would read, a long time ago we used to be friends. Use here can be a verb or a noun, although used can also be a verb or a noun if you use them in the right way. But notice though, when it's the verb form, let's say I use something. I use a pen, for example. And so this would be a simple present tense. So it can either mean, oh, I'm using a pencil, I use a pencil right now, or generally I use a pencil, like a habit, or pen. Okay, whereas in used, in the verb form here would be past tense. I used to play, I don't know, basketball, for example. This means I played basketball before, but I stopped sometime before now. Stop playing. So, with these in mind, this is talking about a long time ago, so we need the past tense. The simple past here. So here we need to put, we used to be friends. This is not the present, so we can't use this one. Not use. Okay, next one. Now you may not see this often, but it's a good practice for words that sound the same and words you probably have never seen before. So this is good practice to check what the words mean. So if you check the dictionary for these words, this is sort of a Shakespeare English word for goodbye. Like bye, goodbye, or more accurately, farewell. Saying goodbye, you don't really expect to see them again for a while. Adieu, it's also, see this in Shakespeare plays, much ado about nothing. So you can check this one out. You might know other Shakespeare plays like Macbeth, Hamlet, for example. This adieu means fuss, like a mess. There are other words, but your dictionary will tell you. So let's take a look at these words though. Adieu and adieu. They actually kind of sound different, but if you say them fast enough, they sound very similar. Now let's see which word we should use for the sentence. So without further ado, without any more fuss, here are the top 20 baby names of 2015. So they want to, here the writer wants to introduce something. They want to introduce baby names. So they're not really saying goodbye. So they want to just get to the point and not make any fuss. So it is adieu. So the phrase is you may use it in your everyday speech, perhaps, not very often, but it would be without further ado. Alright, next one. This mistake, these two words are very common among English native speakers when they mix it up. So the writers should have or should have known better than to kill off, a favorite character. Well, here, the common mistake is should have. Because when you say these fast, should have, they sound very similar. But here, if we apply a little verb tense, we would know. So when you talk about something in verb form, so the writers, for example, they should do something. So this would be present. So that would be, I'll use the word here, know. So if we change the tense of this verb, know. So there are only two options when we have should know. So let's use the tenses that are available. Here's the simple present, know. Knew. So if they use the simple past, well, that's not going to work. Should, knew. We don't use simple past with a modal verb like should. We can also use could here. And this is a conditional as well. So we have one more option left. So we have the simple past. So we have the past perfect. So can we use that? So that would be have. No. Well, actually here is the present perfect because it's have. Now the point is, before you get confused with the tense, before I might confuse you as well, is that when you have words like should or could, the word you need that matches any tense form, in this case the present perfect, would be to have known. So there's no of before any verb, really. So the only word out of these two that works in the verb tense is have, to make it a present perfect form. So it is the writers should have known better than to kill off a favorite character. So here, using the grammar rules that you already practiced would help you choose the right word here too. So here, we see two words, and this one applies a little bit of the word parts that you see. So I'll give you a hint first. The root here is regard in this word, and then there are the parts, less. So if you use less after a root word, for example, useless, that means it's no use. Helpless, that means not no help, but someone that cannot help themselves. Help themselves. So here you see the word less, the word part less here, the suffix, changing this word. So regard means to look, to consider. So regardless means, oh, well, I'm not looking or considering this anymore. So that's this one already. Regard less, right? So what would happen if you put E or IR So this prefix here, when you put I before something, or IN, or in this case IR, to match the consonant R here, it means not. So for example, impossible. Or, let's use a better word, regular. You may know the meaning of this word. It's like constant, like frequent. If you put I and you double the consonant IR, it means not constant. See? So here we have regard, less. So not, here already not, consider. And then if you add E, regardless, then it would become not, or without. Not without consideration. So this is something what we call a double negative. For example, it's instead of saying I am not looking, I am not looking. So really, you're just saying I'm looking. So here, the sentence should read, regardless of how much they practice, the players knew they were going to lose. So the sentence here is talking about, well, these people who are playing, they are going to lose no matter what. So it doesn't matter how much they practice. So the right word here, with the right word parts, would be just simply regardless, without consideration. Irregardless is too much. It's like not without consideration. So be careful with your word parts too. Well, here's one for your further learning, and you'll see why I use that word in a minute. Which means it's something you can know for your future. You might use this word or these two words. Farther talks about distance, not to be confused with father. So just be careful. This is like dad. So this would be I go farther north. And this would be some sort of distance. Let's say 20 kilometers, for example. That is actually pretty far. Further, here, talks about some sort of degree. What I mean by this is, it's not a physical distance where you can travel and measure in things like meters, kilometers, miles, and so on. Further is not physical distance. It can be abstract. It can be something else you measure. So, for example, I just said further learning. Now you may move to different places to learn, but we're not actually talking about moving to a different college. It just means you learn more. So here, you have more. So that's the degree. So a sentence form of this is, I cannot progress or improve any, and because it's a degree, you use further. Now, take a look at the sentence though. It reads, this weather just gets worse the farther or further west you go. Because we're talking about a direction and you're going somewhere, then we have to use the one that talks about physical distance, which is farther. So it would read, the weather just gets worse the farther west you go. Alright, we're almost done. This one, a lot more common. For example, versus IE. I'll write these first actually. For example, you may or may not know the difference already, but sometimes, maybe when you get tired or you use too many of these, you would mix them up. But once you work with the right definitions, you are less likely to mix them up. So, for example, would mean, let's say you have, here we use rodents. So there are more rodents than just gerbils, hamsters, and guinea pigs. Here, there's no right or wrong answer in this sentence because maybe the person likes rodents in general, and the writer is just giving examples of, or like gerbils, hamsters, and guinea pigs. It could also like rats, because rats are rodents. Mice, the plural of mouse, they're rodents too, but you might not like those. So another way you could say this sentence is, well, maybe the writer really just likes gerbils, hamsters, and guinea pigs, and only those kinds of rodents. Only certain kinds. So maybe in the rodents category, so not rats, not anything else, not mice or any other rodent. So it depends on what you're trying to say. If you're only giving an example to something in general, then you'd use e.g., for example. If you are trying to say, oh, I only want to talk about certain things specifically, or you want to elaborate on something, use words like that is, or to be specific, then you'd use IE, a specific list. So, for example, is a general list. It can be anything in the category. IE is a specific list or item. So just keep that in mind. EG, for example, is for general lists. IE is for specific lists. Okay, so that's it for some common words that you can make mistakes or mix them up on, and how to fix them using certain things. So you can use the context to help you, which is the sentence structure. You can learn the definition of the words itself. Check each one. So here, right, how to fix. You can use the word forms to check which ones you need to match in the sentence. You can also check the word parts. See what the word parts mean and if there are too many. And finally, you have to check what you want to say. So here I'm going to write the word intention, or in this case, meaning. So, for example, this one was the specific versus general. IE or EG. So for practice, you can actually click on these links right here and do some more of these words and check if you use the right one. These are links that you can try, so I can show you. I'll show you the second one first. So this looks just like the one in the lecture. I'll make these bigger. So yeah, I can cook, but only if the recipe had fewer and it will show you whether you're correct or not. So we've seen this one already. We used to be friends, past tense verb, without further ado. Okay, yeah, it tells you why as well. Here's one, may or may not use this. These culinary creations will whet your appetite, and it explains why. Whet is to make wet. Wet means to have something sharper or stronger. There's quite a few of these. You can go down and finish these if you want to practice new words and new ideas and principles on how to make sure you use the right word in sentences. And this one has a list of all the commonly confused words that if you can click these, it tells you what. So for example, accept means to receive, and it has this example here. To take defeat, well, accept means to take out. So please take all the books of the shelf except not the red one. So you can scroll down through these words. They're in alphabetical order, so you can find them easily and see which ones you might get confused with. And you can find the solutions here with the definition, word form, the examples, and the sentences as well. So that's it for today. We'll see you next time. Make sure to focus on your essay and your research term paper.